Alright, we're ready to begin. This is, I believe, part 3 of episode 1, our premiere episode. We're now 3 hours into the episode. Continuing on with our Clarke County, Georgia map on Georgia Geo. We're playing on a 24-day season. Remember to like, comment, or subscribe. Remember to hit the notification bell to be notified when new videos come out. They come out quite frequently. So here we are. We basically took a coffee break at the horse area corral, and now we're going over to keep our eyes on our hired worker. He's almost done with this field, which hopefully it'll be soon. And then we can prep the field and section it off. I spent more time on this field when we get into the prepping part, and next field over, which is 48. This is field 49, but field 48 I squared it off and sectioned off the part that we're going to use for grass growing, and then I sectioned off the other part that we're going to be using for growing trees and forestry and stuff. So that's another area. Now what we kind of want to do is have it so that we're growing cotton all in the spring, and then in the summertime we're growing barley, oats, corn, and canola on our different fields. So they're mainly to replenish the animal feeds, and any surplus that we have we will sell off gradually over the winter. And all our, as I said in the first video, all our preparation through the spring, summer, and autumn is to make the farm profitable through the winter and the next coming year. So all the work we do in year 1 is going to pay off in year 2. It's going to make a production cost lower, and thus if we're bringing in a steady revenue stream, that's going to increase our profitability going forward. And as the animal pens become more populated, and we're spending less material on the animals, that too makes you more profitable. Takes less time to service the animals, and you see the benefit a little more. Also too, all the work that we're doing in the construction phase here, as we hire more people, local labor, as they come on throughout the year, they'll be more efficient and they'll work quicker, and they won't have any obstacles to go around. So that makes our labor costs less and makes us more productive with our time, because we can essentially do twice as much work in the same amount of time in servicing other people's fields and doing our own farm processes and needs. So I'm kind of looking forward to year 2. Now, as our farming operations scale down here in the winter, the days are going to go quicker, accelerate, because we won't have to do as much other than servicing the animals, selling things, and we're going to be doing logging in the winter. So that'll be most of our day We'll be focused on that. I am filming the voiceover here in the afternoon. It's now in real time 1:13 in the afternoon. I managed to complete a shower between the last part 2, and this being part 3. We're actually a clip ahead in our extrapolating the data off the PlayStation, so we're in the process of getting the 6th clip, and the 5th clip is already loaded to the PC, so we're moving right along. 6 and 7 clips out down, and so I feel really good. I think for the rest of the day, I don't think we're gonna record World of Warcraft, Sims, and Star Trek tonight. I think if we take the night off on recording, that gives us more time to process the videos and get them ready to be uploaded to YouTube. What I do is I process the clip completely so that they're already in their compressed format for YouTube, so that when you go to load them to YouTube, they load really fast and don't take hours. If you let YouTube process the video, it can take hours, one, to get it uploaded, and then hours for them to process it. I always give YouTube at least a day to process videos, but I like to get them uploaded in less than an hour if necessary. Sometimes it can take 4 hours to upload videos, especially when you're dealing with the 4 and 6 hour clips. They take a while. They can take all day to upload, and I try to avoid that. One of my overall goals for doing these videos is that I get to work on our voiceover skills. Voiceovers, like singing, you have to really develop your voice, and you do it every day, and your muscles, they get worked on in your vocal cords, and if you don't strain them. But and then as you speak in your natural voice, the microphone picks that up, and it just becomes natural, and you can do it for longer, and with stronger resonance in your voice, which is something I hope to do. Hopefully I develop, speak a little clear with clarity. That's my goal, and this is a form of public speaking, even though it's a recorded session. It's public speaking, so that is kind of a enjoyable experience for me. And again, this is part 3 of episode 1. We're into the 2 o'clock hour on the farm. It's 17 minutes after the hour on the farm clock there. I'm noticing that the temperatures are quite high for autumn in Georgia. It's 33 degrees Celsius is quite high. Although I live in Florida, so I'm used to 82, 83 degree weather. I love 92 degree weather, and so for me 82 degrees is kind of cool. But for Georgia, I think 33 degrees is in autumn, which would be October, is quite hot. Right? Usually Georgia is cooler in the October time frame, so that's I think an unusual temperature for Georgia. It rained the next, well, as we got done with the recording of this episode, we went on into the next day, and it rained in the very first part of the day, so I'm kind of glad. So, and that was the first rain we had in like 3 weeks, so that means there's no real drought going on. It just was hot and dry, which the seeds that we planted are those kind of crops thrive in that kind of environment. So if the trend continues, at least for the next 3 weeks, we'll have a pretty good harvest. But my anxiety is still high because we don't really know what's going to happen on the first week of winter, and we could end up losing everything. But that's sort of why we did our major stuff in the spring and early summer, and then our summer and winter crop. We planted ours early enough that we might get that window to harvest early, and I think we'll be in good shape. Some of the farmers around us, they're planting now. There's only 2 weeks to winter, so and it takes 4 growing seasons to grow a plant. So they get into the third week of winter, and it snows, and they're trying to harvest. Their crops might die out. But I'm not sure if the plants go dormant, and I know the grass goes dormant, and maybe the trees go dormant. Grass is essentially a tree that grows sideways and not vertical. And so I'm not really sure if some plants go dormant in the winter, which would be useful. I have a small little field over by where the horses are that I use as an experimental field. If I'm not sure what to do, I'll plant an experimental seed over there and like plant it through the winter and see how everything goes. So if you plan wrong, you don't lose a whole lot. Right? So that's what that field is primarily for. It's a test field to try out ideas with different seeds, especially seeds that you're not familiar with, or don't have any real practical experience with. So I've actually taken control of the tractor here. The trees tend to mess up the AI. Again, the civil engineers, we refer to, if this is the first video you're watching in the series, this is actually the third part, but I made a comment earlier that we refer to the map modders as civil engineers in role-playing. And so they put these obstacles in the way so that they're designed to slow you down and screw with the AI, because the civil engineers really hate the AI system in the game. And rather than outright say that, because that would be wrong, they sneakily do it, and you can see it in the way that they make a lot of maps with these weird geometries. They're not even like 5 and 6 sided. They use a curve so that what appears to be a 30-degree arc with only 3 sides, it's really 2 sides, and then that little bit of arc adds like 15 different sides to the AI unit, and it screws it all up. So that's how they screw with the AI in a sneaky way, and they feel like nobody will catch on to that kind of stuff, which is absurd. The first thing we do when we get a field is we remove all that nonsense and square off the serviceable part of the field. And some people would say, well, you're not using that part. Well, if you use that and it's a weird angle, you're going to spend 20 minutes going around this obstacle, and the amount of time you spend going around stuff, right, versus if you didn't service it at all, you're losing more money with that little bit than you are gaining. So it's far more profitable and less time consuming. It's just outright more efficient to when you see these fields that have more than 4 sides, they're really designed to cost you money. But a lot of the modders are art students, and they don't think about things from an engineering point of view, or you're paying for that a point of view. And you wouldn't make a field with more than 4 sides. That's just crazy. Um, even if the field was cut that way, you would use your easement system to square off the field and make it a lot easier to be serviced by people. Eventually, people are going to have to service the field, a human, and you don't want to make it so complicated. Oh, we finished that job, so now we've finished all our cultivating. We got the plowing. We just got this sowing job to do, which is field 25, which is a big field, east side of town. Now, that's another one of those screwy symbol the engineer lost. They put a house in the middle of the lot with a big cul-de-sac, which is kind of stupid. But it's just designed that way to screw you over as a player. So if I ever got a hold of that lot, I would correct that quickly. Either cut all those trees down and break the lot into 2 sections, or just not farm on those little winglets. So here's the field we're getting ready to purchase. 48 and 49. We were waiting for him to get done. We're going to use this field for cotton. That squares off our main farm. And this farm, the side to the east, we're going to square that off and grow grass on it. And the side to the west, we're going to square that off with the field, because we own field 39, which we use for grass production. So we're going to square that off and grow trees in that area. And then the 39 we use for grass production. Part of 42 and 43, where we section it off into 3 areas, that's all grass production. Field 34 and 35 are grass production. And I just bought 29, square that off. He's growing barley on there now, so we just decided to keep that, but I'm eventually going to grow trees in there for logging. And then field 28 we just bought, so we're using 1/2 of the field for our cow pasture in our piglet area. Every time the pigs have offspring, you need to move the piglets, the male pigs, over to the overflow area. So that leaves the main area for the females, because they're producing offspring. And then that makes it easier to grab the animals for consumption. So there we are. That's the different fruit types. Those are all our fields, and there's all the different soils. Now, you see the ones that we did detailed surveys on. We're going to do the survey probably on tonight's stream. I'll film that, record that on field 48 and 49. But now we're going to use the tool to section off 48, 49. You'll see over there where field 50 is, I already built a road there and sectioned it all off. And so we were waiting to buy these fields so we could finish where you have that nice chalky white concrete. I put that down as a road material because when you're driving at night, there are no lights in the area, and it's very reflective, and it makes it easy to see the road. And where we want the heavy traffic to go, we made a white line, and there's a field way in the back there where I made a road that goes all the way back to that guy's field. I think it's field 45. So now when you do jobs, you don't have to do this weird driving technique. There's a road cut in there. It goes right to that guy's property, which is very easy. And then in the center areas, we use that mainly for grass production and tree production. But that's all opened up now, so all the interior fields are easy to get to. You don't have to go out on the main roads to deal with that. Now, I use a 5x5 pattern that I standardize for easement and road building. And you got to make sure they're lined up properly here. And I'm building this road because in the novel, when Athenata comes, she travels through this portal to go from the different universes. And when she lands in the field, she lands in the southern part, and that's this field that we're built. This is the road that they're describing, which goes back to the farmhouse. Now, the farmhouse in the novel is actually bigger than what's in the game, but since this is a pre-manufactured stage, we just took what we got. And so forth. So we needed to section this off so it splits the field in half. And it'll still be used for cotton, but we have this nice little easement here. And the field makes it a little more serviceable and manageable. And then later on, when we get the fields south of here, it'll be ready to go to get the road built properly. And then it's kind of good. This was now here's the road. We're gonna do the road surface first, so we know where that is, and then backfill the easements so that the road is correct. Now, with the PlayStation, and it's something that the programmers of the game put in there, but when you're trying to do a straight line with a paint, it has a tendency once you go 4 or 5 units down or up, it tends to shift to the right all the time. And someone programmed that. See right there, it did that little shift, and it put it in the wrong spot. They do that on purpose just to screw with you. And that kind of stuff infuriates me because there's no reason why it's doing it. It's not an accident. It's happening. It's something that they programmed into it. See right there, it's offset. Screw this up. So I'm going to go back and fix that. I really wanted to get this part in the video because I felt it was important. Laying out the field and doing the land. I've gotten really good at landscaping in this game, and I think it's a lot of people underutilize it. And this is the very beginning when you're laying out your field, and along with the precision stuff, when you lay out the field initially and you do all the survey work for the field, it really pays off moving forward on your farm in saving you a lot of time and money, and making the field more usable other than just doing one thing. I like having my fields, even though there's a main thing it does, I like having side things that you can do with the field, like raceways, access roads, you can store stuff there, so forth. You can use it for the horses, so there's value added to the space other than using it for growing one crop. You can actually use it to grow more than one kind of crop. And part of that is understanding what do you really need as a farmer, and so you're not overgrowing things. And part of that comes into watching your numbers, looking at your data, understanding what the animals are doing, what the field requires, and so forth. Now, our priorities are to the animals, but going back to our role-playing and story, these family, their primary crop is cotton. They're cotton farmers, so everything else is really a supplement to that business. So our focus is we want to prep these fields for the purpose of growing cotton, processing cotton in the most efficient way that we can do that, and at the same time make it easy on our labor. Now we're going to come in do the edging here this side. It's kind of hard, but you got to be careful because you don't want to hit the field that you've got crops growing. We're growing canola on those two fields, so you don't want to wreck that. It'll reset the. This is a side note for the bunker silo where you're growing silage. Um, a phenomenon happens in the game where you get material stuck on the side of the walls of the silage. Now, in my research that I did with bunker silos, that is a real phenomenon. A lot of people think that's a defect with the game, but that's actually a real phenomenon that happens with bunker silos. And what they do to prevent that from happening is when they lay, before they put the shaft or shaft in the silo, they run a plastic liner and they run it over the walls and along the sides, and that prevents the shaft from falling between the plastic, and it also prevents the shaft and silage from sticking to the walls of the concrete for the bunkers. And then so when they wrap the plastic, it's the material is inside the insulating material, and that's essentially industrial way, basically a compost pile is what it is. If you ever garden and you take all your piles of leaves and stuff, what happens is the sun heats up the material and it starts to decompose the material. Well, that heats up and so it starts smoking and it dries out your material, and then you can use that as mulch to for your gardening, and that's what increases your ability to produce loam, quality loam for your plant as a gardener. And it helps with insect control. If you plant a good bed with less sand, what I always try to, when I'm gardening, is I would edge the yard with what I call canals, so the water, when it came off the roof of the house, would flow into the canals, and that would keep the water in your yard without, so you get basically free water. And then because it rains here in Florida like every day in the summer and late spring, so you don't want all that water washing away down the road, and it's good for your lawn. And that compost is what the microorganisms eat, and how loam is made is the microorganisms eat the grass and dead insects or whatever's in there, and when they the waste they produce is the black loam, and that's why it's highly acidic. And like with humans produce nitrogen, which is, I want to say deadly for humans, but it's inert. But plants love plants require 3 key ingredients, which is potassium, nitrogen, and phosphate. And the stuff that humans waste and animals are waste, plants love that stuff. So I was watching a documentary. You have people talking like about global warming, and they changed the name recently to climate change, but it's still the same nonsense. No one's saying the climate's been changing since the beginning of time, and humans don't control that. But you see politicians talking about climate change. They're just doing it because they want you to give them a free paycheck through taxes, which I don't support that. If there's no way that they could get rich from it, I'm all for doing stuff for climate change. But if it's about lining some politician's pocket, I'm not really for that. And when you ask them, well, how will giving you more tax money change the climate? Do you have what form of legislation are you going to pass that's going to change the climate? Nothing. There's nothing they can do through legislation that can change the climate. decline. See, there's that thing, it moved to the right just to screw with us. The game puts that in there. But anyway, I was watching this group. I guess they're engineers, and they develop ability to move carbon and store carbon underground, and because they believe that carbon is deadly for life, which is kind of absurd when you think of it. Carbon is, without carbon there wouldn't be any life, right? All life is based on carbon, hydrocarbons. And even if you agree that aerosols, which were produced from agriculture, contributes to global warming, let's say that's a real phenomenon for sake of argument. Okay, the same people who are behind technology, science, and engineering, they're saying they want you to gloss over the fact that, well, the whole reason why we use these processes is because a scientist and an engineer said it would be more beneficial, right? It wasn't like an everyday common citizen would came out and built tractors and petroleum products and right and aerosols, right? That took a chemical engineer to come up with that process, right? So, and if you believe that's deadly for the environment, then wouldn't the solution be to stop doing it, right? So what do we need technology and science for if all it's doing is destroying the environment, right? When you think of it. Well, they want you to overlook that kind of stuff because it doesn't fit their narrative. They just want you to basically give them free money so that they can study things with no real value. That's kind of why I like Elon Musk in a way. At least he is trying to find a solution in a practical way that sort of sees technology as a way forward and a way to be productive, but at the same time you can be responsible for the land. Back in the old days, I guess Republicans and conservatives, they call that conservation, and the Democrats were kind of against that until at least in the United States, that's what caused the Dust Bowl, what the Depression, which mainly was caused because of prohibition in the United States and the ending of the World War. They outlawed the fifth largest industry in the U.S. At the same time, it didn't just suppress the alcohol industry, but it suppressed the entertainment industry and all the supporting industries that support that industry, which is a huge labor. Like, if you look at like what's going on with the virus right now, the hardest hit businesses are like hotels, restaurants. These are small businesses that employ millions of people as a collective, but they're like entry-level jobs, or women and minorities are a lot in these jobs. And so if those businesses aren't open, then those people aren't being paid, right? So the only people right now being paid are people living off the government, right? And the ones who are running around claiming climate change, and I think people should be good stewards of the land. That's kind of a given, right? But there's a difference between if you're trying to do it in a responsible way or if you're just trying to collect a free paycheck. That's completely different. But I see the value with the precision farming in the game, where you're using less fertilizer, because fertilizer, along with lime, the lime you use to balance out, it's an alkaline basically that you're laying on the field, which reduces the acidity of the soil, because when it rains, the acidity of the soil should increase, right? So you use the lime to lower the acidity of the field, and then that way the plant will grow healthier and have a better environment to grow in. And then the fertilizer, which is adjusted to whatever seed you're using and the soil you're planting in, then only utilizes that, restores the nitrogen levels that are necessary for the plant to grow, which, let's say, climate change is a real thing. It will reduce the amount of aerosols in the air and the amount that you have to use, and you get a healthier plant, better grown plant, and overall for the environment, it's good for the environment. Well, that's a good thing. I think that's something that I would strive for. I think any farmer would want that, right? No one wants to wreck their land. There's no value in that, right? So carbon, humans and plants need carbon, and then plants pretty much use the waste that animals give out, and microorganisms or bacteria are the same way. That's how beer is manufactured. You feed the beer yeast, which that makes the alcohol, and when the yeast drink the sugar, they basically urinate what is then alcohol, and it's a very acidic alcohol, and that's what people drink. Same thing with was it vinegar? It's the microorganism in the organism that creates. That's the waste product from the microorganism that you use. But it's a great when you, like, if you make like sweet and sour, you use vinegar, or barbecue sauce, you add the vinegar to the sweetener, the sauce, to sour it up, make it a little more bitter. And why that is because with taste, things that taste sweeter are usually edible, and things that are bitter tend to be poison, which alcohol has a bitter taste, right? Because it's a poison. And so depending on the toxicity level and what your liver can handle, that your liver will usually clear out your body before you're killed off. That's what toxicity level measures, is how rate at which your liver can process toxins and regenerate before it basically kills you off. And a very useful thing to know. So here we're doing the easement. We're going to do the 5x5 easement, and we aligned it with that side. And the center road here, eventually, once we own both sides of the property, now here we do own both sides, but for that middle section we don't own both sides yet, so we can't correct the road. But I'm trying to leave the road there so I know where it is, the center and end spot, so the part way down there where our silo is, we can bring that on down later, sometime next year, and build a new. That way, when we have real people walking around, they can have really good roads, because right now the roads around here are crappy. And so I'm trying to rectify that over time. So I feel that the civil engineers have did a really good job sectioning off the map, but we can do better than that. And we're laying out our easements. It's a 5x5 easement. There we go. Got one side of the field done. A lot less plowing to do at this point. So now I'm going to go up here to see where our line is. I want to make sure way down south is lined up with where it is at north. Now we bought this yesterday in the game, which would have been the day before. own this small section both sides, so we did a small road improvement so people can kind of see what the future is going to be. Nice, smooth road. It's visible, so when you're driving at night, you can see it. It reflects very well, and at the daytime, it's probably cooler. Then that looks, I think, a lot better than that asphalt. I call it a chalk concrete, probably. But you probably don't want to lay concrete on a farmland. Now, I don't know if it's true or not, but a lot of people say when you lay concrete on a land, it makes it where it's not serviceable for food. I don't know if that's true or not, but I imagine they could rip out the concrete and treat the land so that you could turn it back into farmland. So right there, we want to see where the edge is, and I did that as a visual aid there. So we're lining up on the edge there, so when we come way down here, our street's going to be lined up. So later when we do that middle section, everything should go pretty nicely. And we can't remove those poles, so kind of stuck with those. But the easements, there'll be proper easements on each side of the road with the road there, and the easements are the same with the road. Now I'm going to have to go, once the plants are harvested, I'm going to go back where this little brown easement is and make that the width it needs to be, which is a 5x5. It's a little shorter than that right now, but right now it's fine. It's not hurting anything. We can correct that once the field is harvested in about 2 weeks. So there's no reason to wreck that. And then gonna carefully come down this road following that line and then lay out this road here. Should be somewhere around here. Right there. There it is. So pat. You always got to be careful because the PlayStation likes to shift that to the right on you when you're hitting the button. It waits till you get ready to hit the button and it shifts. So, and that does just to piss you off. I have OCD, and that really just infuriates me when the perfect line gets messed up by some stupid computer, something that the programmer put in there that thought it would be useful. They did it because they're to be an asshole was why they did it. There's no other reason. A lot of programmers today, I don't really want to offend programmers, but a lot of programmers deep inside are assholes. And you see this in a lot of games where you wonder why they programmed that. And it's not an accident that's nothing in a program is by accident. Someone purposely put that in there, and they did it just to be a jerk. And you see that with a lot of games. There'll be something you're like, well, why did they put that in there? And it's a real asshole or jerk. And you move, and it's because the person who put it in there is probably a jerk. And they just do it. So we're going to go down and do the easement now. Do the road first, and then I do the sides, because then it puts the road exactly the width it needs to be. So when you do the road initially, it's going to be a little wider, and then you have to visualize that. So when you come back and put the easement in, it'll be a proper line. So everything's lined with the road. And then so either side of the road you have a 5x5 easement. So when the truck turns around, and then since we own both sides, I usually smooth out the land there on either side of the road so that when the tractors come over it, they don't have that big bump, which really screws them up. And the fertilizer trucks usually have a big problem with that. And I usually if there's a ditch, I'll usually get rid of it. There's no reason for it to be there other than to piss you off as a farmer. We hired a proper contractor to build proper now we'll realign it to make sure the edge of the field is correct. This cuts down the amount of plowing that we're going to have to do, because then we can just set it to limit the field, and then the AI guy can just go to town and we won't have any problem with it. Now, again, with the tree, now that road goes all the way over to the other road, the main highway artery, where before it kind of shifted on you. I bought all the land around that and I redid the road, so now it's one straight road. Now eventually, when we own the field across from there, sometime next year, we'll extend that road west, and so that all the roads line up properly. And then so when you bring other players into the game, all the roads make sense, and they're not goofy or weird. I think that is a wonderful thing. See how it shifted there? Look at that. Trying to screw us. Okay, now this you have to be careful. You have to go down slowly as we turn east. Find out where the line of the field is, and there's going to be some shifting, but once you know where the line is, you can go back and dress the line. So we're going to start here where it turns red and green, so we know what we own basically. So we're just going to hit the button, get a little tap, and then move up a little bit until we run into red. Stay right there. If you want to go back, you want to shift up. There you go. So we're going to keep going down that line till we run into another red spot. So we know where the end of the field ends, and then later when we get these fields to the right, we can make that road where it needs to be. Now this little field there, that's in the book where Athenata lands. It's where the little rally's going on, where they break out and basically a riot occurs, and that little field is where the townspeople are having their little blues festival. And I wanted to set that up in the game so that there was actually a festival there, but in the PS4 we don't have the slot counts to do that. But on the PC, when we make this map, I'm going to go and put that in, because there's an apartment complex right to the left of that, or the field just north of it. That little field is an apartment complex that Dottie West's mother built, and that's where her boutique is built in, and that's where Athenata actually lives in the story. She runs, and in the story, Athenata, she's 2,800 years old, and she, by trade and skill, is a skilled dressmaker and spinster. She knows how to convert different plant material into yarn and string, and to loom it into material. And she learned that because she lived through that time period where all those things were developed. And so plus she learned from Athena. If you know Athena, her primary skill is in dressmaking and tailoring, and that's the story of Arachnia there, between Athena and Arachnia. We're going to go ahead and correct this road here. Okay. Put this easement in. Now see how the field's disappearing on us? They do that, so you have to do it blindly and take a leap of faith, and just to screw with you. We're just going to take a little bit off it, and get our inside line here. Remember, it's a 5 by 5. I assume it's 5 meters by 5 meters. I guess a smaller increment is 1 by 1 meter. Certainly not an inch. It's about a yard. Yard is about 3 feet, which is, I believe a yard is, let's see, 36 inches, right? Yeah, 36 inches. And then a meter's roughly, what, 32 inches. So a meter's just relatively shorter. So if I feel that the best way to convert from meters to inches is to convert to yards. And if you study radar, which I worked on radar when I was in the Navy, at least learned about it. A radar mile, when they developed the radar, they standardized it at 2,000 yards. So a radar mile is only 2,000 yards. And that's why it equates to yards in analog systems more than to metrics. American guns are calibrated to yards. And the amount of bags you put in there are based on the yards, and they convert it to meters. But if you play World of Warships, because the game was made by basically a Russian guy, it's all in kilometers and kilograms, and naval guns aren't really, at least American naval guns aren't. They're built to yards. Just going to go there till we find the red and then shift it over so we know where to adjust our line. It's right there. And we'll go back and make sure that line is straight where we do this. But we need to know where the property ends, and that's why you do an easement. A lot of the matters or civil engineers are, I guess, British guys, and if you look at the way that homes are built in Britain, you get the sense that they don't have a clue what an easement is. Nothing in there. There's no easement whatsoever. Like, what the hell is an easement? And in the U.S., you have easements, and they're proper easements. When you're building things, they're necessary, especially with land. And it's also part of a fire break system. If fire should ever break out, you have these what are called fire breaks. So it'll get to that point, and there'll be a break in the land, and hopefully it won't jump over and burn up all your fields, which I don't think you'd see a cotton field burn up. You can see like tractors and combiners catch on fire all the time, but I generally don't see farmlands burning down. You see like California, where the underbrush catches on fire and the whole state is set on fire. They haven't learned to properly control their forestry. That's what's going on. Now in our land over here, I removed all the underbrush and fire hazards. So, okay, now the field to the right, there we have a proper easement. Now we're going to put this easement in where the road was originally. So the easement is essentially twice the width of the original roadway. So it's actually better than what was there before, but it allows a path for a person to drive a tractor down. So they'll have to drive across your field, and at the same time it provides a waterway for runoff, and it makes it more efficient to get around the field when all the roads and roadways and easements line up properly. A lot of the things that they call roads in this game are really just glorified cart paths. If you ever go play golf, and I play golf a lot in Florida, I seen golf cart paths that were better than some of the roads in this game. Are really horrible. So see, the tree there is off the road, but it's in the easement, and so you don't have to worry about people running into the tree. If they run into the tree, they probably shouldn't be driving a car, let alone a tractor. To get at least in the U.S., to get a license for a tractor, heavy machinery operator, you have to have at least a driver's license. So if you're running in the trees and stuff, they probably wouldn't give you a driver's license, and you probably wouldn't get a commercial driver license to drive a commercial vehicle, right? Because you'd be a safety. So now we're going to do this other field. Now you see where the thing jumped over and hit that field. We're going to have to go back over that with a plow to correct for that. But we can do that tomorrow or later tonight when we stream. So that won't be a small issue. But again, the computer screwed us. But we wanted to spend, we're almost done here at the very end. So we continue on with this in the next video. So we're going to set this field up. We're not going to do a whole lot to this field other than edge it and get the easements in today and get it ready for grass growing. And then in the springtime, we're going to come back and plant the trees in the other side of the lot. And then so year 2 we'll begin our path to forestry. The Georgia Forestry Association. That way we don't really have to harm the forest around the area all that much. And only in the first year we're going to cut paths. Now what I like to do on my maps, if I'm the one running it, somewhere where there's big forest, I generally put a lot nearby that people could stage heavy machinery on. So like people are only doing logging certain times of the year, they can go out and drop all their head. They don't have to cut a path into the forest, waste a lot of time. They can just there's a pad right there where they can put all their heavy machinery in and keep it there without having to worry about it and come back the next day. And I find that a very useful thing, even though I don't directly benefit from it. Other people will benefit from that, which saves a lot of time. And now lot 39 over there to the left, I own that part, so we've been using it for grass production. So I'm going to line this to this field that we don't own, so later when we purchase it, we can put the easement. Now we're going to do a 10 by 10 easement, which is twice the width that we need, but that way our easement is in its proper place. Now to the left of that or west of that, that's all going to be filled in, and we're going to reset it. And to the right of that is where we're going to have it to grow grass. See, the game screwed us there. See, it did that little shift over. Yeah. That's how you know it's not an accident. It keeps doing it at the same interval. Every fifth time you go down, it does that little shift. See? So it's someone did that on purpose. Someone put that in the game purposely. and um, they do it just to piss people off, and it's sad. Oh, we're at the end of the video, so we're going to be moving on to that next part, which should be part 3. So see you then.